If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon, link is in the description.
Chapter 86, Plans for Ishiki Otsutsuki. Soul Suppression Seal. Whoosh. As soon as Tsukimi's hands slammed together, a wave of energy erupted from his body, causing the temple to shake a little. Jijin's body was now glowing like a light bulb, and all the symbols rushed towards Glabella. The seal revolving around his mind like an orbit started to become more stronger and complex. Ah! A shrill voice came from the depths of the body, and it continued for a few minutes before LT died down and silence filled the room. Now the next step. Tsukimi thought and slammed his feet on the ground while muttering. Void Imprisonment Seal. Boom. Tsukimi stayed in the same position, and snake-like letters started coming out of his feet, and they started spreading like small snakes all around the hall. The letters started crawling on the wall and merging with it. They moved from one wall to another wall. In a span of an hour the whole temple was covered in these markings, which gave off an indescribable feeling. The space around the temple seemed to tremble for a while before returning to normal. Tsukimi watched as the characters started disappearing inside the wall. A cold smile appeared on his face. Soul Recovery Seal. Activate. As soon as those words echoed in the surrounding, an ethereal glow appeared around Jijin's glabella. A pulsing grey energy that gave off an eerie feeling crawled around his mind and seeped into it as if nurturing something. And indeed it was nurturing something. It was nurturing Ishiki Otsutsuki's soul to its peak. No, Tsukimi did not go mad to take such a step. He had a proper plan for doing this thing. He was planning to forcefully recover Ishiki's soul to the peak using the Soul Recovery Seal, and since he did not have a good understanding of souls, he could cripple Ishiki's mind. Tsukimi placed the Soul Suppression Seal, which has now merged with Ishiki's soul and made it impossible for to regain consciousness unless he want him to. Tsukimi's plan was simple. When his soul is recovered, he would reap it for the nourishment of his own soul. He was raising Ishiki like a chicken for slaughter, and this chicken could not even move, let alone fight back for his life. His main problem was the informing trigger on his soul that could inform the Otsutsuki clan about his death, and for a long time he had been working on it too. The general principle behind this trigger was simple: as soon as someone with this trigger dies, the seal will send every last drop of the person's soul power to send a signal through the void. This signal was untraceable, and once it is sent it cannot be stopped with usual methods. This signal reached the Otsutsuki clan, it alerted the receiver about the death of the owner of that particular signal. Now, Void Imprisonment Seal. This seal, as the name suggests, has the only function of sealing the void so that the signal of the death of the person inside never leaves. Only Tsukimi can come and go out of this void chamber as he pleases. If the void is imprisoned, there won't be a medium for the signal to travel. Whoosh! Tsukimi waved his hands to clean off his appearance before he disappeared from the place. After disappearing from the place, Tsukimi reappeared in his room. He had already told the girls about his plans, and they also agreed with him. When Tsukimi told them about the condition for him to reach the next stage, the girls even felt a little angry at themselves. They have been leeching at the soul energy from him, and yet he willingly gave them to him. They immediately asked him to make it so only his soul gets strengthened, but he declined, saying he did not want them to protect like some treasured pieces at home. He wants them to fight beside him as his other half, as someone he could leave his back to. He doesn't just want to shield them from the dangers all of his life. Hearing those words, the girls froze suddenly, and they immediately jumped into his arms, swearing that they would always fight alongside him. Tsukimi still remembers how their eyes were gleaming with thirst at that time. Those mere eyes made him feel a weird tingle inside of him. Back in the room, Tsukimi scanned for the girls and saw that they were shopping through the village under a disguise. Since their clones were doing missions, they did not want to expose themselves and chose this way to go around the village. He took a step and disappeared from the room and reappeared in his dimension. He looked at his clones with a serious expression. They were all ramming through all kinds of seal knowledge, and he knew that he was about to break through in his seal's knowledge to create a new body. Although he was saying he was close, he still needed somewhere around 30 to 40 years to complete the seal. The time is near. I need to prepare as well. Tsukimi mumbled and sat on the ground in a lotus position. I need to see the future. Chapter 87, A War is Coming. Tsukimi sat in a meditative position and closed his eyes, and suddenly an erratic aura started oozing from his glabella as a wide third eye opened in the middle of his forehead. Boom! A huge pressure enveloped the area around him as the huge blood-red eye was opened. There was an ominous aura coming from the eye, and there was no pupil inside it. There were only rings and commas surrounding a small black, like they were orbiting around a planet. 3 rings of different sizes were surrounding the black dot in their center, and the commas, which were also called tomo, were placed at equal distance from each other. There were a total of 9 tomos. Suddenly the surroundings of the eyes bulged and the tomos started to spin at an incredibly fast rate. Time around Tsukimi seemed to have stilled as his eyes started looking around in different directions. Suddenly it stopped in one direction and focused even more. It looked like it was looking at something that crossed the realms of their time and space. Something that not any mortal was allowed to see. It did not even feel like Tsukimi had opened his third eye for a second that he closed it suddenly. As soon as the eyes were closed, time seemed to be flowing normally again and all the ominous aura in the surroundings seemed to have vanished. Tsukimi opened his eyes and there was a hint of clarity in his mind along with a look of determination. He sighed out loud, and rubbed his temples. This is frustrating. I couldn't see anything at all. Tsukimi thought as he recalled everything he watched in these. He thought of what he had seen. Due to the limitation of his ability, Tsukimi was only able to see 10 years ahead in the future, and during these 10 years, nothing significant happened. That meant that whatever this big change was going to happen after 10 years. Tsukimi sighed and thought of his actions in these years. He saw the choice he had made in the next 10 years and also noticed that he did not make any significant progress in his strength and seals. But Tsukimi also gained some benefits too. The seals and the knowledge he had assimilated in these 10 years were now inside his mind and he could use those knowledge to speed up his progress. It is just that I need to participate in this war too. I need to reap those souls for myself. His thoughts wandered and he remembered how he chose not to be too active in the coming war and he lost a chance to gain a slight boost in his strength. Now that I have chosen to change the course of future, the future I know of does not matter. Tsukimi got and looked far in the distance at the illusionary sun of his dimension setting down. I need to either improve my strength or gain insight in the time laws. Tsukimi sighed and disappeared from the dimension, leaving the clones working on their work. He did not forget to pass the knowledge he has gained from the future sight to the clones. With this knowledge they can improve their progress. Back in the Hokage office. An old man was sitting on an office chair behind the desk filled with papers. The sheer amount of this document almost created a pile the size of a 10-year-old kid. The middle-aged man sitting on the chair took a deep puff of the smoke pipe in his hands while looking at the piece of paper in his hands. In front of him a man was kneeling on one knee while keeping his head down. His face was covered in a cat mask. It was obvious that the man was a member of the infamous Anbia force. The one working directly under the Hokage. Behind the man stood 3 people, 2 of them were middle-aged men while the last one was a middle-aged woman. One of the man was standing with the support of a kin despite his age. His eyes seemed to have been injured as there was a bandage wrapped around it. With his single eyes, he looked at the letter in the hand of the Hokage, who was also his friend, with curiosity. He was the shadow of the Konoha village, Shimura Danzo. The leader of the root organization, you can call them the damage control team of the Konoha village. The other man standing beside him was one of the council members of the Konoha, Homura Mito-Kato. While the middle-aged woman was Koharu Udaten. She, just like Homura Mito-Kato, was a council member of Konoha. They were both former teammates of the current Hokage and the students of the late second Hokage. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked up from the piece of paper in his hands and looked at the man kneeling in front of him with a solemn loom on his face. Has the contents of this letter been confirmed? Yes, Hokage-sama. The man replied without any emotions, as if the thing that caused the Hokage to act so serious was not enough to faze him. What is in the letter, Hiruzen? Danzo asked with curiosity and walked forward towards the desk. Hiruzen did not mind the actions and cold tone of his friend and replied while passing the piece of paper to the man. As soon as the man held the letter and read it, his expression turned ugly as cold. Hiruzen's voice was heavy, turning the atmosphere in the room a little serious, alerting the rest of the people. War is coming, a great ninja war. Chapter 88, The Stir in Every Great Village. War is coming, a great ninja war. Hearing those words, the room turned silent and the council members felt a chill ran down their spine. They remembered the horrors of previous wars and the power of the people fighting in the war. They even had nightmares related to the cruelty of the war, and when they realized that even though the world is only safe for people with power, they did not have the talent to gain it. Since they did not have the talent to gain power, they started finding other methods to protect themselves. Soon they found an answer too. The answer was political power. What's a better way to gain power than to use their friend and teammate who was the current Hokage? This is how all of them gained their current position. Using this friendship and position, they always get the important news and announcements of important changes before the rest of the family heads. Even the founding families like Senju and Uchiha were not informed of the incoming war before these 3 people came to know about it. Hiruzen, are you serious? How did a low-level war turn into a full-scale great ninja war? Yudin asked in shock. Her eyes had a trace of fear inside them and she was hoping that the news was false. They had been having low-scale wars with the village based on their disagreements, but a great ninja war was on an entirely different scale. In this war the great villages participate in a full-scale attack against each other. Although the current Konoha was more powerful than the rest of the village, they knew it was only a matter of time before they got overtaken by the rest of the villages. With their first Hokage, the god of shinobi, dead along with the betrayal of the second most powerful man, Uchiha Madara, their village was low on firepower. Danzo just quietly looked at the letter with an ugly expression on his face. We all knew that the war was close, what's the point of bickering? You should have known that this would happen after what we did with the Uzumaki village. Hearing Hiruzen's reprimanding words, Yuditan's words stuck in her throat and she clenched her fist with an ugly expression on her face. What do you want to do, Hiruzen? Danzo, who had been quiet for a long time, asked about breaking the heavy atmosphere. Hiruzen looked at him with a hint of appreciation in his eyes and took a deep puff of smoke before answering. I want you to deploy the route and make them infiltrate the Hidden Rain village. I want an eye on the actions of their shinobi. Sarutobi gave Danzo a mission and turned to look towards the two council members. Since they held nothing but political power, they were of no use on the front lines. Turning his head towards the man kneeling on the ground, Hiruzen thought of something and ordered. Send someone to call all the clan heads for a council meeting. Tell them it's urgent. The man bowed and left through the body flicker technique. While the higher-ups of the Konoha village were discussing their actions in this great ninja war, the rest of the villages were the same. In a land filled with nothing but sands instead of land from as far as eyes could see, there was a small village where the people were trying to survive despite the harsh conditions of the environment. It was the village of Hidden Sand. Just like how Konoha was shrouded by endless and vast forests and greenery, this village was surrounded by nothing but sand dunes and desert. The village was built with clay structures. One of such clay structures was the office of the head of the village. The third Kazekage. The strongest Kazekage. Sitting in the middle of the office, the third Kazekage looked at the letter in his hands with a serious look on his face. It seems that the leader of the Hidden Rain has become an ambitious man after the death of the two strongest men in the world. He mumbled while placing the paper on the table. The man had wild purple hair and his eyes remained stoic like that of a seasoned warrior, and he looked at the man kneeling in front of me before ordering. Call the council members and tell them a meeting is being held. The man disappeared without a trace and third Kazekage looked outside the window of his office to look at the setting sun with his emotionless eyes. This might be the chance for us to grow. Similarly, there was another village that was covered in the natural embrace of earth. There were stone cave pillars and monuments all around this village. Iwagaku no Sato, or the village hidden by rocks. In the middle of this village was a tall stone-made room that had a majestic look to it while giving off an ancient aura. Sitting on a comfortable chair, a small middle-aged man with a huge nose looked at the letter with rage in his eyes. Damn Hanzo! You really showed your ambitious nature. Do you think you are like that man? Onaki, the third Tsuchikage, yelled in anger and frustration. An image of him looking up to a figure of a tall unrestrained man flashed by. There was even a slight sense of fear in them. That man, Madara Uchiha, was in a league of his own. He was just a step behind the god of the shinobi world. If you want a great ninja war, that is what you will have. He jumped from the stone chair and ordered the woman covered in the Anbu clothing kneeling on the floor, tell the council members to come. We need to hold an urgent meeting. He paused a bit before adding, call the Jinchurikis as well. I don't care if they are bathing or making kids, I want all of them here in 5 minutes. The woman did not even flinch at his vulgar words and disappeared from the room. Onaki looked at the empty spot and rubbed his back. Did I hear something crack, or was it my imagination? Chapter 89, B-Rank Mission. Just like any other day, Hatake Sakumo woke up from his sleep early and did his morning routine. He exercised after waking up and ran a couple of rounds around the whole village, which left him drenched. On his early job, Sakumo also found a man in full green tights doing a vigorous routine of body training. He would have ignored it if it was any other person, but the uniform of the person clearly indicated that he was still a genin, someone at the level of his students, and the training he was doing was something even jonins would find hard to even bear for a few seconds. From the age, the person also seemed quite old and above what normal genins are. He did not notice it at first, but there were heavy weights that were tied to his legs and arms. He was shocked to see it, but did interrupt the man, and continued his workout before returning home. After coming home, he had a bath before eating his breakfast. After he was finished with his morning routine, it was time to meet his students and perform his daily task. Speaking of his students, he found them weird. The tasks that people usually complain about were completed by them, and they did not even need to work in teams to work for them. Like there was a mission where they had to find a missing cat, but the boy named Akihiko stood there and the cat came whimpering towards him. That was the biggest shock of his life. The cat, who never even let its owner touch it, let alone the other people, just came to him out of her own will. She was even more unwilling to return to its previous owner, but a glare from the boy shut it up. He did not know what Akihiko told the cat in her ears, but she never left the home after that day. Then there were two girls beside him who would just do the task in a minute, either by hook or crook. They even left some of their customers traumatized who dared to flirt with their fiancé. He was shocked to find they were engaged, and even though they were siblings. But it was not that surprising, because many clans practiced such traditions to keep the bloodline in their family. The Hyugas and Uchiha were examples of this practice. They never married someone out of their clan. In a matter of minutes, Sakumo was already out of the residential area and was about to reach the location they had set for their team gathering. As soon as he reached the place, he found his team members were already in the place waiting for him, just like always. But unlike the usual, where he would get an innate feeling looking at them that there was something weird about them, he did not get it this time. He was surprised to see that the boy was holding a sword in his hands. Tsukimi did not know what his Jonin instructor was thinking as he sat on the ground in a meditative position. There was a sword placed on his knees, unlike the previous times. The sword, although sheathed, looked so beautiful with the extravagant carvings on its black surface. Tsukimi already came to know about the details of the day from the future sight, which is why he and the girls came in person. It was also the reason he brought the sword. Finally, I will be able to start learning Kenjutsu. I haven't had the time to do that in a long time. Sakumo suddenly appeared in front of them and they all got out of their position. Sai, you are on time like always. You guys will make it seem like I am deliberately arriving late or I get lost on my way here. Sakumo scratched the back of head while trying to crack a joke. Tsukimi smiled a little, seeing the reaction of their instructor. Before he or the girls could respond, a man suddenly appeared beside them. He was wearing a cat-faced mask and his outfit scared that he was from Anbu Force. He glanced at the kids for a short while before turning towards Sakumo. Hitaki Sakumo, Hokage is summoning you along with your team in the office. Sakumo was shocked hearing the sudden summon, but soon he recomposed himself and nodded at the man with a solemn look on his face. He knew that there was war going on, and the sudden summon at this time meant that there was a mission for them. The Anbu member used body flicker to disappear from the sight, and Sakumo turned to look at the three members of his team. Let's go and hear what the Hokage has to say. Tsukimi did not say anything and tied the sword to waist and followed behind Sakumo along with the girls. You are here, Sakumo-kun. Hiruzen looked up with a haggard look on his face. He was handling the paperwork from the war for a few days without any breaks, and it was taking a toll on his body. He even looked like he had aged a bit. Tsukimi watched with amusement as the man picked up a scroll from the table and threw it towards their teacher. Hiruzen locked his fingers and placed his head on them and said, "What do you think about your team handling a B-rank mission?" Chapter 90, Leaving for the Mission. Hiruzen locked his fingers and placed his head on and asked with a serious look in his eyes and said, "What do you think about your team handling a B-rank mission?" Sakumo looked at the scroll with a cold expression. He opened the letter to read its content and closed it again. He bowed towards Hiruzen and spoke, "With all due respect, Hokage-sama, they don't have enough abilities and experience to take on such a mission." Hiruzen took another puff of smoke from the pipe and nodded, "I know, but this is an important mission and we don't have the extra manpower to spend on this mission. My students are on the front lines in Omegakure fighting with the rest of the ninjas, and the Anbu have their own mission." Hiruzen looked at the still stoic face of the Jonin in front of him and added, "I also know that this might be dangerous, but knowing that you are with them, I am sure you would be able to bring them back without any problem." Sakumo sighed hearing those words and nodded, "I will make sure to complete this mission, Hokage-sama. I am sure you will. When you return after completing the mission, all of the team members will be promoted to the Chunin rank." Hiruzen smiled hearing those words and nodded in satisfaction. He also shot the Tsukimi and the girls a warm smile before looking back at the papers on his desk. Three kids from the behind looked at the exchange with a cold, disgusted look in their eyes. But the look was so deeply hidden that no one was able to notice it. After a few formalities, they left the room with their teacher and made their way back to the gathering point. As soon as they reached the point, Sakumo threw the scroll towards Tsukimi, letting them read the contents of the scroll. "This is the mission. We have to deliver some of the necessary rations to the front line while also keeping an eye on any ambush on the road. Sakumo spoke while glancing at the three kids in front of him with a complicated look in his eyes. He did not want these little kids to face war this early, but he did not have any choice in this matter. The war was already close to reaching the peak level. All he can do now is to keep them safe and sound. Meet me here before sunrise and make sure to prepare as much as possible but not too much. Your priorities should be weapons, medicine, and food. Sakumo advised before disappearing. Tsukimi and the girls also left for their home. The next morning they all arrived at the meeting point, and this time they saw Sakumo ready in the place with his full gear waiting for them. Did you pack everything? Sakumo asked, seeing no backpack on them. Tsukimi did not say anything but took out a piece of scroll from the pocket instead. Seeing the scroll, Sakumo raised his eyebrow at first before nodding. Since you have everything ready, let's leave and finish the mission as soon as possible. All of them disappeared from the place and left the village through the front gates at an incredible speed. Along the way, Sakumo stayed vigilant for any possible ambush. He also noticed Tsukimi and the girls were quite relaxed but did not say anything. He knew that experience was better than any lectures he might give him. Before they knew it, night had arrived and they stopped at a place to set up camp and relax. Do you want to practice Kenjutsu, Akihiko-kun? Noticing the same black sword he was holding yesterday on Tsukimi's back, Sakumo asked with curiosity. Yes, I have been thinking of learning it, but I did not find a good time to learn them. Tsukimi replied, leaning his back against the trunk of a tree. Kokuo and Matatabi also nestled close to him. Seeing their actions, Sakumo could only shake his head and continue. I will teach you the basics when we have time in between the mission, for now you should rest and gather energy for tomorrow. Sakumo advised while jumping on a tree and lying down on its thick branch. Although Sakumo did not sleep completely, he relaxed his body a little so that the strain he put on his body was minimal and he could fight at his full strength. Tsukimi did not sleep but started meditating and continued his research of the seals. Soon the morning arrived and they continued on their journey. Just like the previous day, they did not encounter any ambush along the road. The trip was going very smoothly for their team until Tsukimi noticed a slight change in Sakumo's body. Although he knew what was coming and did not care much about it, still he was flaring in anger at what happened next. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk. A sharp sound of metal cutting through the air resounded as a sharp kunai made its way towards. Chapter 91, Angry Tsukimi. Tink. A kunai collided with the rushing kunai, causing them both to fall to the ground. Kokuo looked at the young man standing on the tree coldly. Dressed in a Megakure ninja outfit, the man looked at Kokuo with a provoking gaze. He was the one who threw the kunai at her and she sent her own kunai to counter-attack. It seems Konoha ninjas do not have the manpower that they sent a few genin fodders on the battlefield. A man came out of the shadows and commented after casting a short glance at three kids. His gaze was filled with disdain and ridicule. After that the man turned towards Sakumo and his face was a little serious. He was the jonin of the team himself and he was leading a team of capable chunins to ambush the supply of the Konoha ninjas. Tsukimi was even hearing what the man had just said and was just staring intently at the man who had just sent the attack at Kokuo. He knew that the attack was nothing for tailed beasts like them. He knew that the man never posed a threat to Kokuo's life even if he burned his life for it. He knew all of that, but still. How dare this inferior creature dare to attack Kokuo? How dare he draw his weapons at my woman? His eyes momentarily became like that of a reptile and natural energy around him flared. The experienced jonin felt something was wrong with the kid, but they did not know what was happening to him. Even Sakumo was not sure what was happening, but he could tell that the boy was pissed. Sakumo-san, we will handle the chunin members. You can deal with the jonin trash. Tsukimi's cold and heavy voice echoed in the air as he kept looking at the same guy. Kokuo and Matatabi also sensed the emotions of their brother and were already looking at them like they were dead meat. Seeing the eyes of the members of his Sakumo sighed and pulled his white sword out of its sheath before speaking. Sure, I would say keep one alive for interrogation, but in wartime we don't need to do that. After saying that, Sakumo charged at the jonin of the Rain Village. Ren Matasuda was the chunin of the Rain Village. He was assigned a task of intercepting a team of Konoha ninjas which was carrying their ration to the war station and supporting their ninjas on the front lines. He, along with his jonin instructor and the rest of his team members, had set up an ambush at this place because they wanted to tire the team out until they arrived, while being on guard for ambush throughout their entire journey. They did not expect that the team would be made up of 3 genins along with a jonin instructor. They could tell from their age that they were newly promoted members. This made his worried heart relaxed. This was the first time he faced war, so he was a little scared. Seeing that his opponent were some brats who were wet behind their ears made him both happy and angry. He was happy that he would be able to complete his mission easily, and he was angry that they waste so much time on these people. In his anger he sent a sharp kunao at the girl. Her beautiful appearance had taken him off guard, but then again on the battlefield the mission was the most important for a ninja. This was the most important thing they had been taught since they were born, to be the tool of the village. Thinking of this, he sent the kunao at a very fast speed at her, thinking he had got her and she would die. But to his surprise the girl sent a kunao of her own in the direction of his kunao without even looking at her. When she and the other girl and his enemies turned towards him, he was stunned to see their beautiful appearance. Are all the girls in Konoha this beautiful? He did not even take the third person of the team into account until he felt a chilling glare locked onto him. He looked at a bot wearing an odd mask to cover his face, looking at him like he was looking at a dead body. How dare this boy look at me like that? Does he think a freshly genin can do anything besides dying at my hands? That person felt his anger spiking when he heard how Tsukimi exclaimed of taking care of their team by themselves. This arrogant brat! Who does he think he is? His reaction was similar to the reaction of his teammates, who were silently looking at them with anger seething inside their eyes. Tsukimi walked forward without saying anything, and his emotionless eyes fixed on his target. Ren watched as Tsukimi started walking towards them and snorted in contempt. He blinked his eyes, and something that sent shivers down his whole body. The boy who was a few meters away from him was now in front of him, looking down at him like he was not even a living person. A trash like you dared to attack my woman. Death is a mercy for you. Tsukimi spoke in a chilling voice. He grabbed Ren's chin and made him look at him. Look me in the eyes. As soon as Tsukimi said that, his eyes changed pattern, and in his left eyes, instead of his usual golden eye, a chilling blood-red eye appeared. Seeing the eyes, the man trembled unconsciously. Sharingan. No, it's a little different. What is that eye? The man felt a slight tug, like someone pulled him towards them. Before he knew it, everything around him turned dark. Chapter 92, Merciless Tsukimi. Warning. A little torture ahead, be careful and read on your own risk. Sharingan. This was the only thought in the mind of the ninja from Hidden Rain Village before he found himself blacking out for a second. Before he knew it, he was in a different place. The place itself was screaming death to him. The ground was charred black, and fumes of lava and fire came from cracks on the ground. As far as eyes could see, he could only see destruction and mayhem. Gulp. There were mountains and mountains of skeletons and bones at several places, which gave him an eerie feeling. Whoosh. He felt a strong gust of wind from his behind, but unlike the atmosphere of this realm, which was smoking hot, the wind was a little cold and a little violent in nature. He instinctively turned around to look at the source of the wind. Piss. What he saw sacred him so much that he pissed his pants on the ground. He thought he was in an illusion because he still remembered the eye he saw before he found himself here, but feeling the warmth around his crotch area, the man was having second thoughts. His legs trembled when he was on a huge mountain of corpses and bone, a huge fox with 10 tails at his back looking down at him with killing intent blazing in its eyes. This is not a Genjutsu. This is a tailed beast? 10 tails. His mind stopped working seeing this scene in front of him, and he fell to his back on the ground. The fox took a step forward and growled in anger. Growl. His voice was filled with anger, causing the man to crawl back in fear. You mere pest, dared to even think of attacking my woman. Where did you get the courage from? Tsukimi's cold and loud voice boomed in the space. The man was trembling non-stop. He did not even have the guts to open his mouth, let alone think of what was happening in front of him right now. He was just facing a group of little kids, but now he was suddenly in front of a tailed beast who was claiming he had attacked his woman. Did he have a death wish to do that? But then it clicked his mind, and he looked at the fox with even more fear in its eyes. Is this guy a perfect Jinchuriki? No wonder the village sent him. But isn't he still too young? Erg. Before he could continue thinking, he found himself suddenly in an extremely hot environment. His feet felt like they were on fire, which was true. When he looked down, he saw that he was being lowered in the pot of lava at an extremely low speed. This is just the start, and don't worry, this is a Genjutsu. Even if you know it, you won't be able to do anything. Tsukimi's chilling voice sent shivers down his spine. Nu. Arg. Tears streamed down his face. He was in a mess. He did his best to break out of the illusion while his mind kept diverting towards the lava burning his feet. The more he thought about it, the more he felt his pain increase. Blisters appeared around the area that kept burning. Before he knew it, his whole feet were gone and his legs were now being engulfed by the fire. The man seemed to have lost the light in his eyes by the time the fire reached his waist. Seeing this, Tsukimi snorted and snapped his fox-like fingers. Snap! Thud! Ren felt his back hitting the solid ground and there was no more pain around his body parts. No more boiling lava trying to burn him, no more fear of death, and this very thought scared him. How was he not scared after he went through such a torture? His eyes gained a glint of panic as they flashed from left to right trying to see what was happening. He felt his body was back to normal like nothing happened to him. Even though he remembered what he went through, his body did not show any signs of being burnt. Even his clothes were back in their normal condition. Crickle. Tick. Tick. Strange sounds were addressed by his ears, but when he tried to move again, he trembled in fear. He could not even lift his finger. He laid there motionless on the ground without any kind of ability to move. All he could hear was those creepy noises. He did the only thing that he could. He moved his eyes to look around and he saw things that sent his mind into the deepest level of hell. There was a flash of red color that went around his body. The only thing he could see was several legs. The size of that thing should be no more than that of his finger. He was confused at first, but when he saw the horrifying grin on the face of that fox far away in the distance, he knew he was not going to be let off that easily. He would die the worst death possible. Suddenly, his feet and hands registered a sensation. The touch of sharp and pointy things. They were not just one of two, they were like a swarm of ants. He realized that they were the legs of the insect from before. His face paled in fright and then, sting. The horrifying screams of the young man echoed in the surroundings. Tsukimi watched as the bugs ate Ren's body little by little from the inside. They gnawed at his flesh and went inside his body to continue their feast. This continued again till the boy lost the will to live in his eyes and laid there on the ground motionless like a dead doll. Do you think you will be able to die that easily? Tsukimi's emotionless voice echoed in the realm, but the boy was not able to hear it because he had already died. Whoosh! Tsukimi's tail rushed towards the boy at an extremely fast speed and stabbed him in the stomach. Back in reality, Tsukimi looked at the dead man in front of him with cold eyes, his hand gripping his neck. The nearby ninjas were scared and rushed at the boy to save their teammate without knowing that he had already died long ago. Before they could approach him, they were intercepted by the girl in the boy's team. You are not disturbing, dear. He needs to let out his frustration. Matadabi's bell-like voice stirred the man's heart. On the other side, Kokuo silently stopped the guy from approaching. Chapter 93, Scared Ninjas. You are not disturbing, dear. He needs to let out his frustration. Matadabi's bell-like voice stirred the man's heart. On the other side, Kokuo silently stopped the guy from approaching. As Tsukimi pulled his hand back, an illusionary figure, a look-alike of the dead boy, came out of the body. He did not wait much and stabbed the illusionary figure with his sword. Ah! The shrill cries of the soul echoed in the area, and the other ninja from the Rain Village watched in horror as Tsukimi pulled the soul of their teammate out. They stood there trembling in fear as they looked at the boy in front of them. 1 second their teammate was standing there ready to fight, and the other second he was lying down on the ground dead. They one whom they thought of as a little kid, whom they could kill at any moment, pulled something out of their friend's body. They had a slight guess to what it was, but they did not dare to believe it. Only Shinogamis can extract the soul of a person. How did a mortal like him do something that only gods are able to do? They did not care about the girls in front of them now. They were so scared of the boy that when he turned to look at them after killing his enemy, they took a step back in fear. Gulp. They gulped unconsciously and tightened the hold on their weapons as they watched the boy come closer to them slowly. Don't be cocky. You are nothing but a mere brat. Seeing the look in Tsukimi's eyes, of the ninja yelled in anger. His reminded him of how he looked at the normal people from his village. Mere insect. That's what they were to the boy. He did not even see them as a living human, let alone his opponent. The two of them looked at each other and charged at Tsukimi with full speed. Let's see if you can handle both of us at the same time. Both of the ninjas attacked Tsukimi from the opposite side. They started weaving their hand signs at an incredibly fast rate and started performing a jutsu. One of them created a football-sized orb which started floating in the air, while the other one started manipulating the water puddles in the area. So what if you have a strong body? How many jutsu a genin like you could know? They both grinned wildly. Kokuo and Matatabi did not interfere as they knew their brother did not need help and they wanted him to absorb their souls. Both of them flared their chakra and launched their attacks. Orb of Storms Jutsu. Rainwater Crafting Jutsu. The orb made of water launched in Tsukimi's direction and exploded, launching several needles of water at him. While the other ninja manipulated water to create many weapons and launched them at Tsukimi at an incredibly fast rate. When they saw that Tsukimi did not have any intentions of dodging the attack coming at him, their face gained a smile, thinking that the boy was probably too scared to even move. How laughable! Tsukimi's cold voice echoed in the area as he took a step forward. A golden shadow sprang from his back like a huge tentacle. Before they could catch a glimpse of what it was, it swung and deflected their attacks back in their direction. No. They tried to dodge, but the speed of their attacks doubled after that huge thing deflected it back towards them. Whoosh! They all stabbed their body, but somehow their vitals were spared. Akh! Grunt! They laid their grunting in pain as Tsukimi stabbed their body with his sword. He did not know if he could reap souls from a dead body before the Shinigami or the god of death takes them, but he knew that he did not want to take a chance when each soul counted as an increase for him. Let's go, he should be done on his side too. Tsukimi turned towards the girls and spoke calmly. He was talking about Sakumo, who took the Jonin away so he could prevent them from intervening in their fight. This was also the reason Tsukimi used so many things like his tail and Rein Sharingan, because no one alive was there to witness it. They flickered away and rushed towards their teacher. Tsukimi had also kept an eye on him throughout the time he was torturing and killing, because he wanted to see the level of this person. He was impressed to see that someone else had the potential to reach the levels of Madara and Tobirama. He would need a little more effort to reach the level of Hashirama, but if he was given guidance he would be able to do it. I can train him, he might be useful for something. Whoosh! Just then they appeared at a little distance and saw a white flash of light slicing through the neck of the Jonin instructor, ending his life like it was nothing. Thud! Seeing the dead body of the Jonin enemy falling to the ground, Sakumo turned towards them and showed a light smile. It looks like you three did not have much difficulty in handling your side. Chapter 94, Sakumo vs Omegakure Ninja. Sakumo looked at his students before he started disposing of the body of the man he had just killed. A few minutes ago, Sakumo shuttled through the air and stopped around an open area and looked around. Whoosh! A man appeared and stopped behind him, but he did not just stop there, he sent a couple of flying weapons at Sakumo at an extremely fast speed. Clang! Clink! Clang! Clink! With a white flashlight, all of his kunais and shurikens were on the ground. You don't seem to care much about your team, aren't you worried that they would die at the hands of my team? The man was not shocked or scared seeing his attack fail, but instead he mocked Sakumo for not even thinking about his team members. Sakumo also did not rush to attack, but he stayed on guard with an unsheathed sword in his hands. You should be worried about your team instead. I wonder how long they will last. Sakumo replied calmly. This is not their first time on a battlefield, so I think they should be fine. They were rescued in a war, and by the time the granddaughter of the first Hokage saved them, they had killed a couple of weak civilians who tried to rob them. Sakumo would be worried if this was their first time killing someone. He knew that they were strong both physically and mentally, which is why he left them alone to fend for themselves against the three Chunins. Haha! You surely have some confidence in them. My team has 3 Chunins while yours is just made up of 3 genin kids who just graduated. No matter how talented they are, they cannot compare with experienced Chunins. Hearing those boastful words of his enemy, Sakumo shook his head and replied, who said they don't have experience, and besides no. Never mind that, if you are done with your jutsu just attack now. The grin on the Omegakure ninja's face vanished and it was replaced by a solemn expression. He did not expect that his opponent knew that he was preparing for an attack and still did not attack him. Hump! You will pay for your arrogance, you damn Konoha shinobi. Uchikomi Kauhu no Jutsu! He yelled and suddenly looked towards the sky. The originally sunny day started getting shrouded in the dark clouds. They started rumbling loudly as the rain started pouring downwards at a heavy speed. This is... Did you notice? This is no ordinary rain. This is the special jutsu of Omegakure, Uchikomi Kauhu. The rain water is infused with chakra. Sakumo felt the rain water carefully and spoke. To be able to tell that with a glance, you must be a strong ninja from Konoha. Tell me, what is your name? The man spoke as he looked at Sakumo vigilantly. His eyes were still filled with confidence now that he had casted the jutsu. Are you so confident because of this jutsu? Sakumo did answer the question and asked a question of his own instead. Well, no point in talking to an enemy in a war anyway. Sakumo shrugged, seeing the lack of response from his opponent, and launched an attack. He rushed to the man and arrived in front of him. Within a second and sweat his blade to make a cut. Clang! Surprisingly, his sharp blade was met with the resistance. Sakumo saw that the ninja of Hidden Rain Village had a chilling smile on his face as he used a kunai to defend against the attack. Do you not realize it yet? Ha ha ha. What I meant when I said that this is no ordinary rain. The drops of rain when they stick to your body will make your body slower and slower with each passing second. The man laughed out loud and pulled out another kunao to stab Sakumo, but when he stabbed him, Sakumo in front of him turned into a wooden block and reappeared a few steps backwards. I heard you the first time and already knew about this rain the moment it appeared. Sakumo said and suddenly started charging again, but this time he also started weaving his hands into jutsu. I was just seeing how much this rain can hold me back, but it seems it's not too much. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Sakumo sent a huge fireball at the enemy, but the man successfully dodged it. Plop. The rain had transformed the dry land into a damp area, creating a few puddles of water in the process. The man could hear the water because of his footsteps, and his eyes widened as he saw the fireball collide with the water, stagnating in the area and forming clouds of smoke. The smoke started spreading and hindered his vision. The man hurriedly used wind-style jutsu to disperse the mist, but he was a step too late. Swoosh! He heard a sharp metal sound making its way towards his chest and went on alert. He used every fiber of his body to dodge the incoming blade and was also successfully able to dodge it until... It seems they are finished on their side too. Here I am dragging it too much. What would they think of me as their sensei? The man flinched hearing the board sound coming from his back and turned sharply, only to see a flash of white blade which did not create even a tiniest bit of sound before everything went dark for him. Thud. Thud. Sakumo looked at the decapitated head and the body laying on the ground before waving his sword to get rid of the blood. Whoosh. He turned to look to the side and smiled seeing his students arrive there. He had already sensed them approaching and decided to end the fight early. It looks like you three did not have much difficulty in handling your side. Chapter 95, Attacks from Two Villages. Rustle. In the chaotic state of the ongoing war, all the ninjas of the Konoha village were busy with their tasks. The front lines were led by three disciples of the current Hokage. They were Orochimaru, Tsunade and Jiraiya. The three of them were currently sitting in an enclosed tent around a desk. There was tension in the room as Tsunade and Orochimaru looked at the map on the table. The final battle against the village hidden by the sand is near. Orochimaru's hissing voice cut through the tense atmosphere as he turned to look at his teammates. Tsunade, how is the research on the poison going on? I am almost there, I should be able to do it in a few days. She spoke with determination in her eyes as she clenched her fist. Hearing her response, Orochimaru turned to look at the other member of his team and narrowed his eyes, seeing Jiraiya side glancing at Tsunade's breasts while trying to be subtle about it. Noticing the weirdness in Orochimaru's eyes, Tsunade turned to look at Jiraiya only to see him hurriedly look away from her with a look of deep contemplation on his face as if he was immersed in his thoughts. Tick. Tsunade immediately knew what had happened and then... Boom. With a single punch, Jiraiya was sent flying outside the entrance of the tent. When will Sakumo-senpai be able to reach this place? Do you have any idea who he is coming along with? Looking away from the degenerate member of her team, Tsunade asked Orochimaru about the status of their backup. She knew Sakumo as he was someone who had graduated from the academy for a long time and has a good track of mission records. She once saw the strength of her senpai and knew how strong he actually was. When she knew that he was coming as their reinforcement, she was naturally happy. With him on our side, we will be able to easily defeat quite a lot of shinobis this time. Still, who is he bringing along with him? Orochimaru even stopped pitying his friend and teammate a long time ago because he knew that he was the only person to blame here. Who told him to be such a pervert and always try to trigger their volcano-like teammate? Hearing the question Tsunade posed, he came out of his reverie and explained. They should be here soon, it's been some time since sensei sent us a reply. Orochimaru spoke as he stood up from his seat and walked to the corner of the room. He took out a scroll from the bag placed on the table and handed it to Tsunade. She started looking through the scroll and gave it back to him a short while later. It seems we will be having some more ninjas in our ranks that can help us. Although the Hokage did not mention the details of the members Sakumo was accompanying, she was told that they were quite capable. Ahem, their attention was drawn by a beaten man who entered the room with a haggard look and coughed to make his presence known. Tsunade just looked at Jiraiya coldly and waited for him to speak up. I heard from my sources that the ninjas from the Hidden Sand Village are on the move. On the other side, Hidden Rain Village is also planning something big. We might have to face these two forces together. Your sources, hey? Scoff. Tsunade did not shy away from scoffing when Jiraiya mentioned his sources. She knew that his sources were mostly from the brother ladies who sold their bodies to their customers, but no matter how much she hated his method, she had to agree that they were always helpful. The Sand Village has the One Tails and the Rain Village has, well they have the Hanzo of the salamander. Tsunade expressed her worries as she looked at the map once again. Although facing the two villages at the same time seems worrying, they also have their own battles to face. Tsunagakure and Omegakure are not just facing Konoha. Orochimaru chimed in, easing her worries. It seemed to have worked as Tsunade nodded in agreement too. They were not the only village being targeted by two forces. Well, even if they come, I will show them what my sage jutsu is capable of. Jiraiya laughed out loud while patting his chest. For a quite long time he had been visiting the lands of the sages to learn the sage mode and was barely able to scratch the surface of handling the natural energy. Hearing his shameless boasting, Tsunade could not help but become irritated before she could move to kick him in the nuts. The folds of the tent opened and a ninja walked inside. Tsunade-sama, Jiraiya-sama, Orochimaru-sama. The reinforcements from Konoha has arrived. Hearing those words, Tsunade stopped in her place and turned to look at the man before nodding. Send them in. The man walked out of the tent only to pause as he heard a loud shrill cry. Ah! Tsunade, don't kill your teammate. It's betrayal. Someone save me. He stopped for a second before continuing his steps. Everyone on the front lines more or less came to know about the true nature of the students of their Hokage. All of them are weird. The man did not stay in the place any longer and rushed to fulfill his duties. Chapter 96, Tsunade's Anger. Sakumo along with his team stood there at the entrance of the stronghold of the Konoha village waiting for the ninja to inform the people in charge of their arrival. Suddenly the ninja appeared in front of them. He was the same ninja who left to give information about them to Tsunade and the rest. Sakumo-sama, you can directly report to Tsunade-sama along with your team. When he spoke about his team, Tsukimi noticed him casting an unusual glance at them before looking away. Sakumo also noticed this change but chose to ignore it. He nodded at the Jonin ninja in front of him and walked forward towards the direction of the main camp. The situation seems tense. Tsukimi commented nonchalantly as he continued to walk behind his teacher. Why do you think that? Instead of commenting on it, Sakumo raised his eyebrows and asked back another question. The ninja deployed here are less than what one would assume, meaning the rest are either on their mission or injured. Tsukimi casted a short glance at all the entry points and the place guarded by the ninjas. Most of them were Jonin ninja, who are usually called the top-ranked ninjas of the village. The war might end soon. This was the last sentence Tsukimi spoke before he turned silent. Sakumo, seeing him like that, smiled wryly and commented, it's good for all of us that the war ends early. Why start a war for pathetic reasons when you cannot afford to handle it? Tsukimi heard Matatabi scoffing in his mind. Hearing her words, Tsukimi sighed and replied. Whatever they are fighting for is momentarily happiness for them. At first they started for survival, but when they have the sweet taste of victory, they crave for more. They look for reasons to create war. Matatabi also sighed. Hearing his response, humans were really fragile and easy to tempt. Some are tempted by so-called peace, some are tempted by glory, while some just want chaos in the world. Temptation made them annihilate villages like Uzumaki clan. Temptation made them kill. Temptation also made them stronger. Imagine them realizing one day that all they fought was nothing but a speck of dirt in the eyes of truly strong people. Kokuo's comments brought Tsukimi out of his deep thoughts. He thought about it and could only laugh at the thought. If by chance these humans even visited the moon, they would really want to start a great ninja war to occupy it. Even when those resources were not even passable as advanced resources. Wait, stop Tsunade, have mercy. Sakumo stopped suddenly outside the tent, hearing the loud noise from the inside. Tsukimi and the girls rolled their eyes, guessing what was happening. Boom! Sakumo suddenly moved away from the entrance of the tent. He realized that kids were behind him, but it was too late. A figure of a human came launching at them at an incredible speed like a ball. As muscle-headed as always. Well, this guy deserves it too. Tsukimi commented on seeing the man coming towards him like a flying ball. Taking a deep breath, Tsukimi adjusted his strength and kicked him back. Boom! Jiraiya was sent flying back inside the tent and collided against the table, breaking it in the process. Sakumo looked at Tsukimi with his mouth open. Ahem, let's go inside. Hearing Tsukimi's words, his lips twitched, but he shook his head and entered, followed by three little ninjas. He was a little shocked. After all, Tsukimi just kicked the student of the current Hokage, who was also a special Jonin. Tsunade doing it is one thing, but a Jonin doing it was a whole different thing. Inside the tent, Tsunade, who had just sent Jiraiya flying, was surprised to see him come back in the same manner. Oh whoa! Woo! Woo! everyone kicks me like it's nothing. Hearing his dog-like cries, even Orochimaru looked a little disgusted. Tsunade looked at the entrance with a little shock as she saw Sakumo enter. "Sakumo-senpai, you have finally arrived." She sighed in relief before adding, "You should have kicked this pervert with more strength. At least his brain might turn back to normal." "I was the one who kicked him." Hearing the familiar voice behind Sakumo, Tsunade's eyes widened in shock. She saw Tsukimi walk inside along with the girls. "Why are you all here? Wait, did that old man send you here?" Tsunade yelled in anger and realized what team the Hokage was talking about now. Orochimaru looked at the trio with sharp eyes and then turned to look at his teammate crawling out from the pile of the broken desk. "Senpai, at least you should have stopped that old man from sending them here." Hearing Tsunade calling Hokage old man, Sakumo just coughed and replied, "You should not worry about them, they are strong enough to handle a Chunin team easily." Tsunade was shocked hearing his words at first, but then she remembered her fight with them and added, "Even if that's true, even Jonins are not safe on the battlefield." Seeing the worry in Tsunade's eyes, Tsukimi smiled a little and walked forward. "You are thinking too much for someone who likes to act with her fists." His words caused a vein to pop on her head. Ignoring her reaction, Tsukimi continued, "Besides, we are not alone on the battlefield. More importantly, we are not reckless enough to charge in the front lines." Hearing his words, Tsunade calmed down and sat on the chair while rubbing her forehead. Tsukimi shot a side glance at Sakumo, who understood and took out a scroll from his legs and walked forward. "These are the supplies from Konoha along with our mission scroll." Tsunade's eyes sparkled as she hurriedly took the storage scroll and passed it to Orochimaru. "With these supplies, I will finally be able to make the cure." Her eyes gleamed with happiness and relief as she looked at the contents of the mission scroll. Chapter 97, Displeased Jiraiya. Tsunade's eyes gleamed with happiness and relief as she looked at the contents of the mission scroll. She read through it and turned to look at the team in front of her and announced, "I announce that your mission is deemed as complete and you three are granted the title of Chunin." Tsunade grinned as she announced their promotion, but when she saw no speck of emotions in the eyes of the three kids, her lips twitched. "You damned brat, at least be a little happy for the promotion." She grumbled and tightened her hold on the mission scroll. Orochimaru also looked at the scene with a little amusement in his eyes. "Happy about what?" "Being a cannon fodder on the front lines." Tsukimi's calm voice brought a deadly chill inside the room. Even Sakumo had a complicated look on his face as he heard the words of the boy. Although it may seem like they were promoting him, in truth they were just giving him qualifications to join the war and put his life on the line. That would have been true if Tsukimi was a normal human kid. Jiraiya frowned hearing his words. Those words simply meant that the Hokage sent them to die here. Being the student of the Hokage, he couldn't accept such a blatant defaming of his teacher. "You kid!" Just as he was moved forward to speak, Tsunade shot him a glare while Orochimaru held him back. Seeing the ferocious look in her eyes, Jiraiya gulped in fear and whimpered back. "Don't think too much, with me here nothing will happen to you." Tsunade said with pride as came closer to Tsukimi. She gave him a light chop on the head and looked at him warmly. Tsukimi smiled under the mask and mumbled something that only she was able to hear. "You are too naive, girl." "Ahem. Asami, Haruki, Akihiko, you three go and rest for now, I will call you later." Before she could ask what the boy meant, Sakumo spoke up and sent them away. Nodding, the three of them left the tent, leaving a deep silence in the room. Tsunade sighed and stood there with Sakumo while Orochimaru seemed to be in his own thoughts. "Why did you not stop him? He insulted our teacher." Jiraiya, who had been silent till now, spoke up with a displeased look on his face. Even though Tsunade was a woman he had a crush on, the boy defamed his teacher. Ever since he was a kid he only had his teacher who cared about him. Despite his shortcomings he still looks up to Hiruzen. He was even more displeased with Tsunade that she did not scold the boy or teach him to respect the Hokage. Seeing the look of displeasure on Jiraiya's face, Tsunade shrugged and replied, "Did he say anything wrong? We have seen what war is like and we know that even some Jonin might not survive the war, let alone Chunins who are just promoted." Jiraiya wanted to retort that no word came out of his mouth. Tsunade did not stop there and added, "I know that you do not want to hear things against that old man, but you have to realize that he is not perfect. He had done his fair share of shady deeds." Tsunade's eyes flashed with a sharp light that went unnoticed by everyone before she concealed it. Jiraiya just lowered his head and did not continue to speak. Sakumo on the other hand was in deep thought as he looked towards the exit of the tent. "Let's not talk about this anymore, we all have work to do." Orochimaru decided to intervene seeing the tense atmosphere inside the room. Tsunade was the first one to get up. I will work on the poison and make an antidote for it. She took the supply scroll for Orochimaru and left the room. Jiraiya also left the room to look for information. Sakumo casted a short glance at the smiling Orochimaru and left the room silently. Left alone in the room, Orochimaru walked towards the broken and moved his hand over it and his eyes shone a little. Tsukimi and the girls walked towards the camp for the Chunins. Many people looked towards them with different emotions. They were shocked by the beautiful girls accompanying the weird masked boy. What was even more shocking was that they seemed to be quite young. But if they were able to enter the Chunin camp, that meant that they were Chunins just like them. Are they some kind of genius that Konoha is cultivating in secret? Do you think that they are really that powerful? Were they promoted recently? All kinds of whispers spread through the room. Tsukimi ignored the talks and walked to an empty corner and sat there silently. These humans are really pesky. Annoyed, Matatabi spoke when she heard some of them defaming Tsukimi. Even Kokuo had a little frown on her cute face. Since this was an army camp, no one dared to cause trouble, but Tsukimi could sense some of the male ninja sending hateful gaze at him, like he had killed their family. He understood that beauty brings trouble, but he was not the kind who was afraid of trouble when someone comes after his wives. As long as they know their place, everything is fine. Chapter 98, Concern Tsunade. Days went by and there were no attacks on the army camps. The Konoha ninja stayed on guard because they knew it was just the calm before the storm and the real final battle was about to begin. All of the ninjas were tense and the low-level ones were praying for their lives as they sat in the room. While they were playing, Tsukimi was leisurely walking around the medical camp with his girls. He was bored with just sitting in one place, so he first asked Sakumo to teach him some jutsu that could be the cover for him about where his knowledge of jutsus came from. He was able to mask the origin, but he could not mask the talent he had. The low-level jutsu were nothing for him and he was able to learn in a single try. Sakumo was shocked and wanted to test him using chakra paper, but on the battlefield who would have brought the chakra paper, so he just gave him some techniques of fire, water, wind and earth style. He did not give him techniques above the level of a Chunin. These techniques were merely D or C level at best. After learning all the techniques in a day, Tsukimi was left with nothing to do again. He gave the techniques to the girls and surprisingly they also took the same amount of time to learn them. Their chakra system was different from humans and they can even make the jutsus with just their hand signs alone. The hand signs were a little tricky for them to get used to. But even with their clumsy hand speed they could make their hand blur while making seals in front of the eyes of a normal person. The reason for their trip to the medical camp was to visit Tsunade. Although he knew that the woman was rude and rowdy sometimes, all the time, but he knew she cared deeply for her close people. She had taken care of them in the past few days. Even though she was busy with making the antidote of the poison, she would come up to them and secretly check on them if they needed anything or if someone was causing trouble for them. She came secretly because she did not want any rumors to spread or people picking on Tsukimi because she was favoring him. One day he told her to stop coming and focus on work because it was the matter of life and death of people. He did not want to burden the little girl because of something he had said. He knew his words must have made her feel guilty. After all, she was the one who saved them from war and now she was the one leading them to another war. She could only imagine what they would have felt. She decided to agree with Tsukimi and started focusing on her work. She had been holed up in her room researching the poison. Arriving at the medical camp, Tsukimi easily passed through the senses of the guards along with the girls and went inside. He saw the gruesome state of many humans laying there in pain and with pale faces. Signs of poisoning could be seen on their faces. He did not seem much affected with the scene in front of him. He himself had caused a lot of such or even worse cases. The girls had also seen the rise and fall of many human villages, so they already found this kind of stuff normal. Tsukimi did not stay there longer and walked towards the direction he had sensed Tsunade's chakra. He entered the room without even asking for permission. As soon as he entered, his eyes laid on the woman standing behind the desk and working on something with a serious expression on her face. She had tied her long blonde hair into a ponytail. Her hands moved meticulously as she infused a rat on her table with the poison from the Tsunade. After the rat showed signs of being poisoned, she started performing treatment and fed him the medicine she had created. The rat at first showed signs of recovery. Seeing that she did not immediately started celebrating but keep watching as the rat slowly started to breathe. Once he was able to breathe, she started performing her medical ninjutsu and created a bubble of green energy which entered the body of the rat, and after a few seconds she pulled the bubble back, but this time it had traces of poison in it. She hurriedly transferred the poison she had removed into a water bowl near her and repeated the procedure. After repeating the same procedure several times, she saw that the rat was not breathing normally. She was not certain that she had succeeded. Congratulations! A warm and soothing voice reached her ears, making her heart throb a little. She turned to look at the boy who had unknowingly entered her room with shock in her eyes. Congratulations on finding the cure. Seeing the woman staring at them in stupor, Tsukimi spoke again with a slight chuckle as he walked towards. I did it! She exclaimed and hugged the boy in happiness. Her big buns hit Tsukimi in the face. Kokuo and Matatabi glared at the woman with hollow eyes. Their eyes radiated with undisguised killing intent, sending shivers down Tsunade's spine. She coughed and backed away. Till now she already got accustomed to the obsessive nature of these little girls. How did you enter? Why did I not sense you at all? She asked with a puzzled look on her face as she sat back down on her seat. Sweat trickling down her face, she seemed to have been working for so long that she had exhausted quite a lot of chakra. Do you think those low-level people can even catch us if we want to sneak in? Matatabi snorted as she sat on a nearby chair. Tsunade's lips twitched hearing the girl calling Chunin a low-level person. What are you so smug about? You are a Chunin too. She did not have the energy to argue, she only thought it in her mind and shook her head. Her eyes caught something and she looked up to see Tsukimi passing her a towel. Smiling warmly, she took the towel. You were so engrossed in your research that you didn't even notice our arrival. We have been here for some time. Tsukimi replied calmly while giving her a towel. Tsunade started cleaning her face and the droplets of sweat that trickled down around her cleavage. She turned to see if Tsukimi was looking at her breasts, which were sticking to her robes because of the sweat. She was shocked to see Tsukimi playing with his pet. Chapter 99, Tsunade's Question. Kato-dan. Tsukimi looked at the scared rat on the desk and picked it up. In his previous life he was disgusted with rats and animals like that, but after becoming a tailed beast and a user of natural energy he came to have a neutral reaction towards them. He treats them exactly like he treats every other human being he sees. There was one more reason, that was even the rats did not look as disgusting as they did in his previous life. Maybe it's because the chakra was affecting all the living beings more than what it looked like on the surface. The mouse was startled by the huge being that suddenly picked it up just now. The mouse was practically going through a torture when it poisoned and was even more scared of anything. But it somehow felt an innate closeness to the being. Even though it was scared, it did not retaliate or attack the person holding him. When the mouse got closer to the being, it felt warmth and started to forget all the pain he had just been through. Tsunade looked at the scene with a baffled expression, even though she was the one who experimented on the mouse to save the people from her village. Seeing it like that now made her a little guilty. Akihiko-kun, do you think I shouldn't have experimented on the mouse? She did not know why she was asking such a question. She was a ninja who had been accustomed to killing without batting her eyes. A mere should be nothing when she had tortured many people. Yet here she was, asking this question to a child who is even younger than her, but something told her that the child was even more mature than her. Tsunade. Let me ask you this. Does the life of a stranger matter to you more than the life of your family? Seeing the woman shake her head, he continued. Life has always been unfair, Tsunade, no matter who it is, they are suffering in one way or another, be it this mouse, the people outside, the people taking part in the war, or even the tailed beasts. His words echoed like drums in her ear, especially when he talked about tailed beasts. Ignoring her shock, Tsukimi added, to me, there are two types of lives. One is the lives of my family and the other is the lives of the rest of the world. Taking a deep look into Tsunade's shocked eyes, Tsukimi spoke. If I was in your shoes, I would use any methods to heal my family. No matter how cruel it sounds. I would shoulder the burden of what comes along with my actions as long as they are safe. Matatabi and Kokuo's eyes blazed hearing Tsukimi's words. Even Tsunade was shocked to hear such deep words and conviction from a boy younger than him. But she also understood that the boy here was referring to his family, not the whole village. When she thought about it, she found that she was treating the whole village like her family. A sense of clarity washed over her, and now she thought about how the boy mentioned the tailed beasts. Even though they were not a secret, she could tell that the tailed beasts being tortured was the fact that they were being sealed inside a human, but from what she knew they were nothing but rampant beasts who can destroy a village if not kept in check. She was about to open her mouth, but suddenly someone entered the tent without permission. Tsuna, what are you kids doing here? Tsukimi turned to look at the man who just entered the room. The man was wearing a jounin vest with his long hair draping from the side. His headband was covered with his long forehead hair, and his feminine face was enough to swoon some girls. The man looked at Tsukimi near Tsunade with his narrowed green eyes and then turned to look at the girls standing beside him with a slight astonished look on his face. This was the first time he had seen them, although he had heard a rumor about a group of chunin with beautiful girls, but he thought it was just an exaggeration. Only now did he know that it was no exaggeration. Tsunade saw Kato-dan looking at the kids with suspicious eyes and spoke. I called them here to help me. What happened? Why did you suddenly barge inside? Tsunade spoke in an impatient tone. Due to Tsukimi's presence, Tsunade gave the necklace to her little brother. She came to know Dan as a colleague and was even motivated by his will to become a Hokage, but that was all. She did not come to like him more than that for the time being. She came to be friends with him, but even then he would sometimes stir her anger. Currently Tsunade was more focused on her family and her career as a ninja. Seeing him act suspicious of the kids near her made her a little irritated. Hearing the irritated tone in her voice, Dan remembered what he came here for. The poison in the people is getting worse, we need an antidote soon. Hearing his words, Tsunade turned serious and started packing the ingredients, suddenly puzzling the man. Akihiko-kun, help me pick the stuff on the table and bring it outside. Without looking back, she asked to pick up the rest of the stuff while she picked the rest of the supplies. Tsukimi raised his eyebrows but did not say anything and packed everything in a sealing scroll. What are you doing, Tsunade? Dan asked with a puzzled expression, looking at the woman he admired. He was thinking that she was panicking because of his sudden statement. I have made the antidote. Let's go treat them. Without explaining anything further, she left the room with the supplies. Kato-dan stood there in daze as he watched her leave with the kids following behind her. Chapter 100, Treating the Poisoned Ninjas. With her swift actions, Tsunade started setting up the whole equipment in the middle of the room. I need all of the healers here. Right now. She ordered with a domineering voice. Within a matter of seconds, all of the healers present surrounded her. I will tell you something that should not leave the walls of this room, otherwise you all will be executed as per the village laws. Her cold eyes swept through the whole room while she was speaking. Everyone trembled under her sharp gaze and nodded like pecking chicks. Kato-dan was also surprised seeing Tsunade like that. He had just woken from his reverie and walked out of the room. He could see that something changed inside Tsunade's eyes, they seemed more clear and sharp than before. He cast a suspicious glance at the boy looking at everything from the corner of the room along with two women clinging to him. To be honest, he was a little jealous of the boy as he could see that Tsunade cared for him. Even though it was nothing romantic, it was something more than what she had shown for him. I will tell you a procedure, follow it and help me cure the people in the room. Tsunade's sharp and confident voice cut through the room, making the people in the room shocked. She had found the antidote to the legendary Chiyo's poison. They had already lost hope for the ninjas affected by the poison. After all, Cho was one of the strongest person from the hidden sand village. Her specialties were puppets and poison. Whoever fought against her rarely lived to tell the tale. Everyone looked at Tsunade with a worshipful look in their eyes. She was like their messiah, arriving with a solution in such a dire situation. She started showing the sets of instructions and procedures for making the medicine they had to feed before the main procedure starts. The main procedure requires extremely fine control over chakra, which sadly none of you have yet. Those words caught everyone off guard. They never thought that they who had been medical ninjas for years did not have enough chakra control to cure the people. At first the medical ninjas thought that Tsunade did not want to spread the method to cure the people from this poison, that is why she was refusing to teach them, but their thoughts changed soon when she started curing the first person in front of their eyes with the leftover medicine. Their eyes widened seeing the complexities of her moves along with the fine chakra control she was using. Tsunade repeated the procedure she had done with the rat before and started removing poison through the new technique she had created. The rest of the medical ninjas immediately understood that they were simply not at the same level as her, which was why they could not perform this technique. In the corner, Tsukimi looked at the technique Tsunade was performing and immediately understood the basics of it and was confident that he could perform it without any issues. What are you standing there for? Follow the instructions she has given you. Dan came out of his shock and ordered the medical ninjas, looking at Tsunade in daze. His words woke them up and they hurriedly started working on the task they had been given. In a few minutes Tsunade was finished treating the first patient, but the ninja had yet to wake up because he was in deep sleep. She sighed in relief seeing that he was out of danger and sat down to recover her chakra. She had just experimented on the mouse, which left her a little depleted of chakra, and now after treating the patient she was tired. These people are at least working with efficiency. While recovering, she kept an eye on the people making the medicine she had instructed. They were working seriously without any complaints. Then she turned to look at the people laying on the different beds. They were all the people affected by the poison. Seeing the number of people, Tsunade had some doubts if she would be able to cure them all alone before it was too long. But I have to do this. It's not like there are people with better chakra control than me. She suddenly thought of something as she paused and turned to look at the little boy in the core who was looking at everything happening. She remembered how good his chakra control was whenever she fought with him. His battle experience, his chakra control and the speed at which he learnt the jutsu she gave him. Everything he did was at the level of a monster. Only she and her grandmother Mito Uzumaki knew about this, but she forbade him from telling her teacher about this. When she asked why she wanted to do that, all she told her was that if she did not want to lose him, not tell anyone about it. From that point on she started seeing the truth of the Konoha Council. That was also the time she stopped calling Hiruzen her teacher. Shaking her head, Tsunade walked towards Tsukimi. Tsukimi was puzzled for a second why she was approaching him, but then he realized what she was doing. Arriving in front of Tsunade, looked deep in the eyes of the boy before asking with a serious tone. Akihiko-kun, how good is your chakra control now? Her voice was quite low, so it was not heard by anyone other than Dan, who was nearby. Hearing the question, Dan looked at the scene with his eyes wide.
Thanks for listening.